Good morning and welcome to Demolition Live. I'm your host, Mark Anthony, and wow, it's good to be back. As you may be aware, we haven't broadcast in a few weeks, and with various good reasons, actually. After an enforced hiatus of about 4 months, I actually got to dust off my hard hat this week for the first time in, Lord alone knows how long. So I am returning slowly and somewhat reluctantly to the day job. But as you can see, some things have changed in my absence. We've got a nice new studio backdrop in place, which is a lot tidier than what we had before. Although you can't see it, there's a new audio interface sat behind the camera, which hopefully will make this all sound a little bit better. And you might have noticed that my Robinson Crusoe lockdown beard has gone. Ultimately, I had to choose between the beard and the divorce, and since the beard can't cook, well, you know, all of those changes are perfectly timed as we're trying something a bit different and a bit ambitious today. And now, for those of you that are watching this on catch-up, this show is actually being broadcast live at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is about 2 hours before I'm at my best and about 3 hours before I'm at my worst. The reason for the early start will become clear shortly. A few weeks ago, I received an unsolicited email from a demolition contractor who wanted to share the story of how he came to be involved in the demolition business. He explained that as a child he'd been pulling things apart to see how they work, and he personally believed that this is what set him on the path to a career in demolition. Now, we all like an origin story, so I set his message aside and thought he might make a good guest for some point in the future. But about 24 hours later, that same demolition contractor posted on LinkedIn a video sharing details of his struggle with depression and mental illness. His honesty, his openness, and his transparency quickly moved him from my get him on the show at some point list to get him on the show immediately list. So why are we recording this at what feels like shortly after dawn? Because the contractor in question is based in the state of Victoria in Australia. His name is Stefan, and I'm delighted that he is able to join us today from down under. Good morning, Stefan.
Good morning or good evening almost here. It's
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you will notice that I deliberately skipped attempting to pronounce your surname, even though you just told me what it was. So go on, remind me how it's pronounced.
Sciessere, so it's one that we normally leave out.
Yeah, I'm just going to call you Stefan and have done with it, I think. Now, I've already alluded this to in my intro, but tell me, how did you get started in demolition?
Yeah, so I mean, you did touch on it, but as far as I can remember, I've just always had this obsession with tearing things apart and pulling things down. I remember even as a child receiving presents, and before I'd even, played with the toy itself, I'd already have it in 200 bits, and just this fascination of how things go together and how to sort of deconstruct them, I think has over the years progressed. And as the projects got larger, so did the tools and the toys, from small screwdrivers to larger excavators. And I think it's just something that's always been coming from within me, just that urge to just tear things apart.
Now, you've been running your business for the past, 4 years or so?
Yeah.
In that time, what would you say is the best thing about demolition, aside from living out your fantasies of pulling things apart?
Yeah, look, I think for me, there's a lot of passion for me in how open-ended the projects can be. I think 5 different contractors can look at a job in completely different ways, and I love that the framework can be quite different to achieve the same result. So I absolutely love arriving at a new project, whether it's at quote stage or, and having a look at it and trying to work out how we're going to get access, what sort of machinery. And I love that problem solving element to the projects that I found in other areas of the industry, in the construction industry. There's quite a tight set framework of how things need to be done. Yet with demolition, it really can be quite diverse on how the same project's tackled.
Now, you are actually a licensed builder as well. Do you think that gives you a different insight, particularly with what you're doing in partial demolition? Because I guess as a builder, you're seeing what comes after as well, aren't you?
Yeah, look, I think it has given us quite an advantage for the work we specialise in. Knowing how things go together obviously assists in the deconstruction process. But where I think it really puts us ahead is probably a more safe approach to the works, understanding the load-bearing members and structural components, so that we can do things in a sequential order that doesn't compromise the building, particularly because with a lot of our work, there's either heritage listed sites that are extremely delicate, and sections of the dwellings that remain, we really can't just go hell for leather. It's very calculated. So yeah, I think the building background does definitely benefit us.
Now, we've talked about the best thing about demolition, sort of allowing you to show your creativity, I guess. But what would you say is the worst thing about demolition?
I think probably the consequences of making mistakes. You know, one little slip up here or there can often, rather than just meaning a job doesn't go as well as planned, can really just turn the job on its head. As we all know, you know, trucks, machinery, and a lot of our equipment is extremely expensive, particularly for a small company like mine that's still relatively young. A mishap on a job can affect us for months sometimes if a machine's majorly damaged. But in the same breath, it has been, some of my biggest learnings have been through making mistakes and damaging gear to learn as we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you only have like 4 years under your belt, but I'm always looking at the legacy of demolition firms. You know, certainly over here in the UK and quite a bit in the States as well. You know, a lot of the biggest companies are family concerns. Would you encourage a son, a daughter, or a friend to pursue a career in demolition, knowing now what you know?
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. I've got a little son, Levi, who's almost 2, and a daughter, Indy, who's almost 1. You know, you don't want to be that pushy parent, but at the same time, it's such an enjoyable atmosphere to be a part of. I would love to encourage younger guys to have a go. And interesting that you asked that, because I had this discussion not long ago that you don't really hear too many people that aspire to build a career in demolition. Majority of people I speak to have sort of either fallen into it or tried it for a short period of time and then fallen in love. It's very rare to hear someone who's aspiring to build a career in the industry. It's almost as if it's accidental a lot of the time. So it's probably not an industry that the younger generation, I know I certainly wasn't, is exposed to as an opportunity to build a career and a passion for. So absolutely. Yeah,
that's good to hear. On pretty much the same subject, who do you look up to in demolition? Is there somebody is there a company you aspire to be like, or is there a person that you think, yeah, that's the way I want to go?
Yeah, look, it's a tricky one for me, because we, particularly locally or Australian based, a lot of the larger companies that are well known are tackling the real monstrosity demolition, which I remember early in my days as I was probably more focused on that and wanting to have the biggest machines in the country and go. And now my focus really is on just really specializing and doing as best as we can in our space. In saying that, I do love watching the Priestley boys over in Canada and just, you know, we'll come into a shop defit or a partial demolition of a house and we're thinking, wow, this is complicated. And you sit back and watch them take down a bridge overnight, you know, and having it cleaned up, ready for the traffic in the morning. And it's so inspiring to watch what can be created over a few generations to run jobs like that, like clockwork. It really gives you some perspective of what you're doing and going, you know, this can be taken just as far as you could possibly imagine and some. So, yeah, I'd say probably Priestley, if anyone.
No, it's good to hear. I mean, I certainly follow their YouTube channel. You know, even though I've been doing this for 30 odd years, I sit there open mouth sometimes at the same thing they do, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So on that subject, what's the biggest or the most challenging contract you've been involved with to date?
Yeah, well, we had a combustible cladding incident here in Melbourne the start of last year, where there was a fire that started as a result of a cigarette in a high-rise in the building, the Neo 200 building. Long story short, it burnt 6 apartments, but the water damage of the sprinklers, it was about 38 apartments that were damaged. We got called in as the emergency response sort of team, along with other contractors, to strip out these apartments. But we had to do that whilst the lifts of the building were still live to residents of other sections of the building. And so 38 apartments needed to be manually stripped and demolished into wheelie bins taped and wrapped and actually brought down a lift 40 floors into a basement, rolled out to the street, and then put into skip bins and transferred from there. And the coordination to have that many apartments brought down in 200-litre wheelie bins, with radios and still allowing all the workings of the buildings. There was businesses in there, apartments, all the rest. More from a coordination point of view, the technicality of that project was by far the most difficult we've ever been involved with. That was, I guess you'd call it a nightmare logistically. Just absolutely zero access and just very, very tedious. You'd be lucky to get 10 wheelie bins down in half a day. So it was just out of control, difficult.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously, I mean, you're very, very close to the general public there. It throws up another question. Do you think the demolition industry in general gets the credit it deserves? Because, I mean, what you've just described there is, like you say, a logistical nightmare. Yeah. The sort of things that the guys at Priestley are doing are engineering nightmares. And we take it all in our stride. And yet I think the general public still see us as the guys that make a mess and blow shit up. You know?
It just strikes such a nerve with me, being so passionate about what we do and knowing how much planning and how much skill and knowledge is involved in what we do. I would go as far as saying it's almost offensive when we share what we do and have someone say, "Oh, cool, so you just smash stuff apart or you just break stuff." And sure, there is elements of that, and we love it. Let's be real, but there is so much to it, and all you need to do is sit back and actually admire someone in a machine or behind the tools for an extended period of time to see there is such a method behind what we do, and so many mistakes had over the years to get to that. There's no way we're given enough credit. We're just, and particularly manual demolition. It's more or less just considered labourers as far as the public eye is concerned, and that's there's no disrespect whatsoever to labourers in saying that, but I think we are quite discounted when we're pricing jobs or speaking to someone and they're going, "Oh, well, I can just get my carpenter to do that," but it's just a completely different skill set that it really doesn't get the credit that it deserves. I don't believe.
No, I totally agree with you. Now, I've got a few more questions before we get onto the serious bit, but we've had a big bunch of comments coming in. I believe a lot of these might be friends or family yours.
Sure.
So,
okay.
Not sure who Kevin Harkins is. Looks like he may well know you.
Yes, hi, Em. So,
who else have we got?
That's my wife. So, that would be good.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I'm going to discount that one entirely. Apparently, you're rocking it, which is good to hear.
Cool.
What else have we got? I'm not sure who Haley is, unless, I'm awfully confused with a lot of this. Accidentally breaking stuff. Yeah, okay, we covered that. What have we got? Apparently, you're a legend as well. So you're a legend that's rocking it, which is not bad. And way to end your day, is it? Bianca says that the industry doesn't get the credit it deserves. I think we're totally in agreement with that. And this looks like another one member of your family as well. Incredible teamwork. So is there any more? There is more. Oh, blimey. That was a great job. I think that's referring back to your
he was involved in the Neo building, actually.
And we definitely don't get the credit we deserve. Okay. So going back to the main crux of things, what do you think the future holds for the demolition business in general, and given all that we've just said about the business, and also for you as well? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually really, really happy with how things are progressing locally. I can't speak, obviously, for international circumstances, but they are sort of cracking down on people being registered and people having the skill sets required to do a job safely and responsibly, which is, for me, really, really good. Because we do things the right way, we're often outpriced by people that aren't, which is a standard thing in any industry. But having builders and principal contractors starting to be a lot more concerned with where recycling's going, where waste is going, how we're going to go about the project, rather than just the price, is allowing us to perform at a higher level and do things a lot more responsibly. So I'm actually really pleased with where it's heading. And I think as people become more aware, and I think as there's a bit of a trend of people upcycling material and reusing bricks and all that, I really am happy with how the industry is progressing. The only thing that I'm probably not overly excited about is that there's very few younger members within the industry over here that are sort of at the leading end of the industry. It seems to be led by the older generations that are slowly sort of passing the reins down or just closing up. And it's a real shame because we're probably one of the younger crews getting around, and it doesn't seem to have that youthfulness to the industry, which is a bit of a shame. But in regards to our business, I think robotics has got to be, a massive consideration for us, because you're getting into some of these really tight jobs and bank safes and things like that. We all know the benefits of robots, but just the safety of using that, and we've used them on a few projects now, and I just can't see how that can't become more and more mainstream as we move forward.
No, I totally agree. Before we get on to the more serious part, obviously we're quite a long way apart. What's the status over there with the COVID-19 lockdown? Particularly where you are, are you still shut down, or are you carrying on regardless?
So we were making progress, and we've had a bit of a blowout again down here in Victoria. So we've actually gone 2 days ago back into a lockdown, which is just 4 essential reasons to leave the house, which is work, shopping, medical, and I believe exercise. So right when we thought we were starting to gain a little bit of momentum, we've taken 10 steps back. And our cases are starting to lift quite a bit. The rest of the country's not doing as badly, but unfortunately, we feel like we're back to square one.
Yeah, I've got a horrible feeling we could be headed the same way, unfortunately. But we will see. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on was to talk about all things mental health. It's a subject that we've covered here in print and on the live stream before. But you're the first demolition contractor, in my knowledge, to be brave and open enough to share your own experiences. I'm not going to pry into what you believe to be the cause of your mental health issues.
Yeah, sure.
But how do they manifest themselves? Is there a specific trigger? Do you see it coming? I mean, I know personally, I find myself gradually sort of shifting away from friends and family, and that's a sure sign that things are not all right. What's been your experience?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it for me also, if I'm honest. Sort of pulling back and almost sort of going into hiding, I refer to it to my friends as. Really just hiding out and limiting social interaction, not taking calls or responding. So that's probably the first giveaway for me that I'm getting to a bad stage. But probably the best way for me to describe my experience of the mental health and my experience with depression this far is just a complete and utter overwhelm at all times, and often without any insight as to why I'm feeling that way. So just a complete inability to switch off, whether it's a Sunday with absolutely no jobs going on, no guys working, nothing happening. I'll be sitting on the couch with my family and my head is just spinning and just stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, and consciously absolutely no explanation for the reason I'm feeling that way. And it's just absolutely exhausting, just wears me out to be in that constant state of overwhelm. Overwhelm's really the best way I can describe my experience with it.
Now, how does that impact on your work? I know when I've had my issues, I tend to work furiously. I just forget everything else. I just work so hard. But in my instance, I write angrily, and I mean, to the point where I've actually had people phone me up just based purely on things I've written to say, "Are you all right?" Because that doesn't look good. How does it impact upon your work? Because I mean, part and parcel of running a demolition company is taking phone calls and interacting with people, isn't it?
Yeah, and that has been probably above all. There's obviously a very personal side to it with the family, but that has probably been the biggest hurdle, is being in that state and having a team that relies on you and clients that rely on you and want your input. you really need to be there to drive that business forward. And I'd find myself doing things like sending myself to jobs alone where no one else could be, and always separating myself from the team. So we'd have the team working on something and I'd say, oh, I'm just going to go in that back area and do the saw cuts, and put my headphones on. And I'm not sure if I got away with it or not, but that was me just hiding out again. And the reality is that I wasn't being the leader that my team needed, and I wasn't supporting my team. And so it's a vicious cycle, because the more you're not there, the more things fall apart, the more the overwhelm builds. And until you break that cycle and just dive in there and be the leader you need to be and take the calls and be there for your team and be involved, you're really in a downward spiral. And I think I was pretty close to hitting the bottom and probably just losing the whole lot right when I got the help.
Wow, that really does focus the mind, doesn't it? I don't know what things are like in Australia, but certainly over here we've had a lot of discussion about mental health awareness, which is fine, but to my mind, I'm not sure we're doing enough to tackle the issues within the industry that actually contribute to those mental health issues. We have sort of ongoing job uncertainty, particularly sort of further down the career ladder, as it were. Financial uncertainty. I mean, I don't think anybody.
Just lost you there, I think, Mark. I've got you frozen on my end. Not sure if you can hear me there, Mark.
No, I think I lost you for a second there, but I can hear you. I don't know if you heard my question at all.
Sorry about that, but look, just if it was along the lines of sort of what I believe is contributing and what we're doing about it.
It was, yeah. Let me just go back over what I was saying. It really is a case of we're talking about mental health awareness, but a lot of the issues that are contributing to that, particularly I think further down the career ladder, like job security, financial security, constantly exposed to risk and danger, those haven't been addressed, have they?
Definitely not. Definitely not. There's just so many factors to it. And I think that additional pressure of this industry probably squeezes out the symptoms and the root causes, but there's just so many things just compiling one on top of another. And yeah, it's great that there's awareness, but as you know from me sharing my story, the scary thing was that I didn't even know I was in that place. So we're urged to sort of look out for everyone and ask if everyone's okay, but at no point did I actually sit there and say, okay, I'm feeling this way. Am I okay? Because it would have been a resounding no. And, I'm just trying to push through and go about my business. Is about the worst thing I could have done.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can. I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry.
I think the problem may well be at my end. So I don't know how far you got with that question. You literally just became a fixed point on the screen there. Did you cover the bases?
Yeah, and I was just sort of sharing that. There's so many factors, and one of the biggest things, and the reason I wanted to share what I did online was that we sort of urged to check in with everyone and do push-ups and do this sort of thing and raise awareness. But here am I suffering, and at no point did I actually sit down and ask myself, am I okay? Because it would have been a resounding no, I'm not okay, yet I keep soldiering on and pushing forward, and it's the worst thing I could have possibly done. So it's all well and good to raise awareness, and I think that's great, and I think it's heading in the right direction. But what are we doing with that awareness? Where's the action? So it's all well and good to know about it in the industry, but what are we doing to improve the circumstances for everybody? That's what I'd
absolutely.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I wouldn't normally do this, but there's been a conversation going on in the comments here.
Yeah.
There's one here, and it's been addressed by I think some of your friends and family.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Stop the myth of mental health. I'm not going to leave him on the screen for any length of time, but I mean, does that not just blow your mind? You know, the fact that there are people, to my mind, that's every bit as bad as people walking around in New York without face masks on.
Yeah,
you know, it's denial of what's there, and I just think it just perpetuates this thing about, you know, mental health. Well, not necessarily a myth, but you know, you just man up, you know, sort yourself out. I just find that staggering that
it's such a destructive. That, you know? It's such a destructive mentality. If you don't mind me chiming in, I can definitely understand that if you haven't been through it, you may not be able to fully relate because it's so hard to articulate what you feel, and I respect that entirely. But that is such a massive part of the issue of people just not giving it the credit that it deserves, because people are ashamed to speak up about it because of comments like that. And it's such a destructive attitude towards it. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I say, I'm just staggered in this day and age, but then this day and age staggers me quite a bit. We've discussed, I mean, obviously you're doing it right now, but you went public, very public, in fact, with your video explaining your own mental health issues. How was that received by your family, your colleagues, and your perhaps most importantly, your clients?
Yeah, I think I was so hesitant to share the video because I didn't want it to be a sob story, and I'm glad I don't believe it was received that way, which was relieving. But the response from people going through and feeling the same way, who were prompted to then go and get support from that video, just, I can't even put it into words. There would have been well over 100 messages in the first 24 hours of people in business feeling the same way. Business seemed to be quite a common trait, but there was others as well. And I think, as we know, and you know, it's talked about more and more, that vulnerability and openness, it does really build connection. And once I just let my guard down, that's as raw as I could be. I really, until that comment just then, there has not been one negative comment or one negative message since. Everything has just been, thank you, I've just realized I'm not okay, I need support. And I did it for exactly that reason. I really wanted people to just watch and go, shit, maybe I'm not okay either, and I need to look into this. And I really believe it's had that effect.
No, absolutely. Well, not surprisingly, your honesty and our friends' disbelief has prompted a few comments there. There's one there. Let's have a look. Standard keyboard warrior behavior. And unfortunately, that is the nature of these things. You know, when you've got that many people that are following a channel, you do tend to attract that sort of person. I'm certainly with Jennifer on this, particularly the second sentence.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can see, I mean, we're restoring the balance here, you know, because there's a lot of people that are.
I think the majority
completely.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's back again, so I'm going to take him off the stream. Anyway, look, having been through these mental health issues of yourself and seeing them up close, what would your advice be to any demolition men or women that are suffering in the same way or a similar way?
I think, and I just went through this, that fear of sharing where you're at and telling people you're not okay and whatever, that fear that it's not going to be taken well in the right group of people is just not necessary. There is so many people there to support you and so many people that are feeling the same way. And I think depression has this incredible ability to make you feel like you're the only person that's going through it and that you know, it's all in your head. But there's so much support out there and so many people that do truly care. And probably bigger than that, this is the biggest shock for me, is depression isn't necessarily you being sad and down all the time, because I've never been like that. That wasn't a symptom for me. That's not how I showed up. So I think don't paint it with a broad brush of being a sad and down person, because there's so many other symptoms that can be a part of it. So sorry, your question was to give advice. I think if you're not feeling 100% or you believe you can be feeling better, speak to someone, because there is so many people that will listen. And depression just makes you feel like there isn't, but there is. They're out there. You only have to read the comments here of how many people are there to support me to see that that's the reality.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we always come back to this whenever we talk about the subject, the fact that, you know, it's a male-dominated industry, and, you know, we'll talk about the football scores and, you know, our favourite celebrity female and that sort of thing. But, you know, I think we're still a long way short of people actually going to their mate on site and saying, you know, I'm feeling a bit crap today, you know. I think it's only when we do that this is something that starts to go away, or at least starts to be understood. I don't think we'll ever cure it, but you know, to actually get some sort of understanding, you know. Yeah,
and I think those people with the strength to do it need to do it, because in doing so, you encourage others and you make it a lot more acceptable. So, you know, I'm telling a lot of people, and my intention for that is not so everyone can, you know, check in and make sure I'm doing okay and feel sorry for me. The reason I'm sharing it with so many people, whether it's clients, friends, family, whoever, is in the hope that they will then feel more comfortable to share themselves if they're ever in this. And it's amazing once you bring that up, how many other people do start to open up and say, oh, actually, I've been there and I never told anyone, or I was close to doing something silly 2 years ago and I didn't do that if I'd seen you, you know. So I think if you've got the strength to do it, I really, really encourage you to do it. It was still challenging to post the video, but it has helped. So I think we just need to talk, if we can, to give the others the strength to do the same.
No, I totally agree. Look, Stefan, I know it's night time where you are. I've got a Zoom call in about 5-10 minutes, so cool. I'm going to call it a day. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today, and I really appreciate you giving up part of your evening. And probably more than anything, just being so open and honest. So take care, my friend. Keep us posted on how your business progresses. You can keep us posted on how your mental health progresses as well, if you like. But I'm most interested in how the business is going. You know, if you do end up taking down a bridge overnight, I'd love to hear about it.
You'll know all about it. Thank you so much for your support through this, Mark, and appreciate the interview. Cheers.
Fantastic. All the best, Stefan. Speak to you again soon. Okay, as I've just mentioned, I'm off on a Zoom call in about 5 minutes, I think. So I'm going to have to sign off shortly. But there's one point I'd like to make about mental health before I go. I think it's perfectly fine and commendable for celebrities and sports stars to share their mental health issues. But the key to acceptance of mental health issues, as Stefan has just alluded to, is normalization. It's only when we all feel able to talk about this subject openly and without fear of judgment that we'll start to make some real progress in getting this sort of thing accepted and understood. I think Stefan is really showing the way. And personally, I think the world will be a better, kinder and more compassionate place if we all follow his lead. As always, thanks ever so much for watching. I know it's been early for some of you and very late for others. As I always sign off, look after yourself. Predominantly, look after yourself, look after your family, your friends and your colleagues, and take care. And I will see you again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.